Dear, oh dear. How are your stress levels, Gunners? That was something else. Could have well done without that, but we've come out battered, bruised, but we got a point. We might have even nicked 3 at the end there. It wasn't to be. Something to cling to nonetheless. This is Blog on You Gunners. Let's have a breakdown. Team selection. It was a long-awaited set of changes from the manager. We'd all been calling for them. A lot of underperforming senior 11 had to make a drop to the bench, and thankfully they did. A couple of those were enforced, of course. Xhaka for strangling and chokeslamming opponents. Hector Bellerin for picking up 5 yellows. That left Willian and Lacazette. I wouldn't have minded if Lacazette started, but that's by the by. That left Willian in particular, who was under pressure for a place, and he lost his. Frankly, he was on the bench for this one. Nicola Pepe came in for him. I think we were all pretty pleased with that. Ainsley Maitland-Niles came in at right back. We'll get onto him a bit later. Cedric came onto the bench. We went with Ceballos and El Neni in the middle of the park. Again, we'll come onto that a bit later. And we went with Oba back on the left, Eddie in the middle, and Saka roving in and around them on the left-hand side. It was what a lot of people wanted to see. I think it was probably a Reece Nelson or an Emil Smith-Rowe short of the ideal, but it was a bit different. It was a bit of a shake-up, and it was much needed, I think, to breathe some life into this beast. That said, the first half, I would say the first 20, 25, maybe even 30 minutes was some of the worst football we've played this season. Quite frankly, it was played by a team who are absolutely petrified of themselves, who are frozen in fear of doing something wrong, misplacing a pass, or being broken upon, if such a term exists. It was pretty bad. They couldn't keep hold of it. They were just passing it along the back. It wasn't going into the midfield. It was as slow and painful as ever for that first 25, maybe 30 minutes. And Southampton were absolutely fantastic. They looked like the sort of team we were 5, 6, 7 years ago. Moving well, passing it quickly, looking dangerous, being pacey, lots of options. It was a really, really difficult first 20-25. And I was amazed that we only came through that period the 1 goal down, because Southampton looked sharp as attack, full of confidence, everything we weren't, essentially. It was particularly poor stuff, comedic stuff from Arsenal for the first goal. 2 or 3 players went charging in to try and win it back. On the halfway line, somehow it wriggled under the pair of them, or they rebounded off of one onto the other. A third sprawling leg goes in from a player who's the wrong side of the ball, who misses, can't bring his man down, and then whoever it was is left with the simple task of playing bloody Theo Walcott in, and he ain't going to miss, is he? He missed enough for Arsenal in that position, but there was no way he was missing tonight. He romped through, finished well, 1-0. We deserved to be in that position, and we were seriously in the shit at that point. It was awful, and I couldn't see how we were going to turn that round. But that said, second half of that half, Southampton dropped their intensity a little. I think they started to rest on their laurels, more for them, because we started to grow into it. We got a hold of ourselves. Our arse wasn't flapping quite so much as it was up until that point. We started to move the ball around. We started to hold some width, and we looked a bit better. Pepe had a couple of pretty decent efforts, I think, on the in and around the edge of the 18-yard box. First time hits, which he's so good at. Nobody can keep the ball down like he can with the first time hit. He was unlucky to see one which was heading certainly towards the bottom corner, blocked by a couple of last-ditch tackles from defenders. Very good defending, in fairness. The second one, he connected fairly well with. He probably would have wanted a bit better. Unfortunately, straight at the keeper, who snaffled it easy enough. But, I mean, he did okay. He certainly managed 2 shots on target, or 2 shots in the direction of the goal, more than Willian has. Willian has had 1 on target this season. in the opening day at Fulham, and already Pepe's matched that in one game. So it was okay from him in the second half of that half. He looked better. Eddie Nketiah had a shot on target, pretty tame, but there was a bit of movement about them. Aubameyang, to be honest, looked much better on the left than he does on through the middle. Whether that's because he's got better people around him, I'm not sure, but he looked much more lively, much more involved. It was pretty good. And in the second half of that half, we were all the things we should have been from minute one. So there were little signs, little slivers of hope going into the break, but make no mistake, it still was not good enough. It still wasn't progressing from where we were 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago when Aston Villa took us apart and our backsides fell out, and we haven't been able to recapture them since. So things to be positive about, things to look forward to. Going into that second half, we were pretty darn good, I think, from the outset. We played with some pace, we played with some urgency, we moved it quickly, we moved it with purpose, ball to feet. There was lots of movement in and around. It was good stuff. We were playing football we should have been playing since day one. Quite why we can't do that for 90 minutes or 70 minutes or even a full fucking half. It would be nice to see that sort of football. The football that we are trying to cultivate at this club, we were playing it. We were shifting it. I don't know what Mikel said to convince them to do what they weren't doing in the first half, but it was decent and we got our reward pretty sharpish, I think, which is just what we needed. Southampton were poor and backing off. Bukayo Saka, who's long been our best player, produced again, wriggled through a couple of challenges. He avoided all the big kicks and cynical fouls that people were trying to slap him with. This season, it seems to be the favourite way of tackling him or dealing with him, but he rode the challenges, was absolutely brilliant, beat a couple of men, laid the ball off. Eddie Nketiah had the simple task of playing Ober in, and that man made sure that was hit. That was a goal scored by a man who was desperate to put the ball in the net, and he larruped it. It went in, make no mistake. There was no chance he was missing there. Hallelujah for all the fantasy football fans who've stuck with Ober all this time. He netted. We were back on terms. Joy abound, and our tails were up. I thought we were going to kick on from there. Quite frankly, I couldn't see why we wouldn't. We were well on top, well in control, and there was lots to build on. But this is Arsenal, of course, and just as we did in the Burnley game when we were in the ascendancy, had the game at our mercy and were pushing for a goal, we shot ourselves in both feet. Gabriel, who earned himself a yellow card for kicking the ball away, and he did kick the ball away, and then by the letter of the law, it's a yellow card. Yes, Southampton players were doing it all game, getting away with it because they were much cuter at doing it, but he didn't get away with it. And he got himself a first yellow, and at that point he had to be careful, but he wasn't. The instruction to the defence all night clearly was to get very tight to their men when they were receiving the ball on the halfway, but he got too tight and he got spun and he had his hands all over Walcott, and the kid needed no second invitation to go down, and he went straight down and he left the ref, as the commentator said, with no choice. It had to be a second yellow. I can't think there are too many complaints about it. It's another stupid red card for Arsenal. And that banjaxed us for the entirety of the second half. The game was, by that point, gone, and the best we could have done was a draw. And it was so fucking frustrating. How many times are we going to do this to ourselves before we wake up and get smart and stop throwing away lifelines in situations like this? We're so desperate for a win that we're losing our heads. And that was another fine example of it. And I know Gabriel's young, but having seen what Pepe's done and Xhaka's done in recent weeks, there's no excuse for his rashness, other than his desperation, perhaps, to win. Forced him into a bad decision, forced him into a stupid decision, and the team paid the price. The remainder of that second half was a lesson in attack versus defence. For all of the possession that they had, Southampton didn't really look like scoring. They had a couple of, Redmond had a couple of promising situations. Fairness to Southampton, but it was always going to be difficult for them to break down two massed ranks, and Ober, skirting along in front of that as well. But by the same token, we were completely neutralised. We had no intention or no method even of getting the ball out or holding on to it or doing anything productive with it. We were just clinging on, lumping the ball up when we could and surviving. Credit to us, we did it for half an hour comfortably enough. It's never easy to watch, of course, when you're invested in it. But unduly troubled, no. Leno wasn't diving around making 4, 5, 6, 7 saves. He didn't have a save to make, really. A couple of testy corners, which we dealt with and which we've dealt with well all season. If we're being fair to ourselves, we've been very good at set pieces. Credit to the coach that they've brought in. He may not have transformed our offensive set pieces, but defensively, it's just been the one all season, and that was an OG. So, he's done well. But, of course, the most Arsenal thing to have happened in this match is hitting the crossbar in the dying 5, 10, 15 seconds of the match. We might have smashed and grabbed, nicked ourselves the winner in the end there. But, of course, it wouldn't be Arsenal if there wasn't some sort of turn of incredibly bad, ironic fortune, kick yourself in the teeth, hilarity, such as it was. He shatters the crossbar and we settle for the draw. What we would have done for that win, it would have been massive for us, I think, in terms of our confidence. In the end, it wasn't to be. We Arsenaled ourselves again, and just to torment us, we hit the bar in the dying seconds when the goal was at Holding's mercy. Be that as it may, we got the point. It could have been worse. We got a goal from open play. Ober scored again. There we go. Overall, what can you say about the performance? It's difficult to draw big conclusions given that once again we were playing with a foot tied behind our backs. Another red card with the majority of the match to play is not ideal. There's not much you can gauge. From what we did see, 11v11, we played in patches again. Patches where we were good, patches where we were incredibly bad. But little by little, if we can piece little bits and pieces together into longer pieces, there's light at the end of the tunnel. This is a game we could have easily lost, and we didn't. Everton away on Saturday is another matter. I think we'll do well to come out with that with anything, but that's a podcast for another day. In the end, I think you've got to be happy. How can you not be? It's a point. We've stopped the rot. We've avoided 5 games, 5 defeats at home in a row. We all hoped for more, I think, but what right did we have to hope for more? We're in terrible form, playing terrible football, and Southampton are flying high and playing good football. In the end, we take a point, we try and build, we get one step closer to January, one step closer to having Thomas Partey back, and then maybe we can build from there. All things considered, we'll take it. And that is your lot for today, Gunners. I am exhausted. I need a cup of tea. I need a biscuit. I need to sit down. I need to watch some other teams go through some turmoil because I've reached the end of my turmoil-taking abilities. But thank you for sticking with it. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe. Thank you for your support. Take care.